Okay, so here we are. It's week 3, strategies and landing pages. So we combined a couple of things this week because we're losing a week for Thanksgiving. So it's going to be potentially a little bit squished because I'd like each of these topics could easily take like an entire hour, and I'm going to try to combine them into 2. Definitely jump in if I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow. Tell me if there's anything that you are missing. Let me just get the speaker here. So we're talking about strategies, we're talking about landing pages. I'm going to skip through that. So I'm not going to spend too much time on strategies this week because I think we're going to hit on them a lot sort of as the time goes on. So I'm going to set some like foundational terms that I'm going to use throughout the rest of the workshop or bootcamp or whatever this thing's called. So that's kind of like the basis here, right? The strategies there's a lot of different ways you can think about campaigns. By the way, this is not like an academic set of names. If you went to school and you learned marketing and you took a class on pay-per-click, probably nothing I say is going to match the things that you were taught. None of this is like, academic. This is just like from running probably, I would say thousands of campaigns and spending maybe like, I don't know, $5 million in pay-per-click campaigns over the course of the last 20 years. I've just kind of developed this like vernacular. So some of it will match, some of it won't. I did some searching on Google to see if like other people were talking about these strategies or stages. And it's kind of a mixed bag. So some of the stuff might not match what you're expecting. And what can I say? That's why you're here, I guess. And then we're going to talk about landing pages. Again, this probably should be an entire hour just on landing pages, but I'm going to introduce kind of how I look at landing pages, what the idea of landing pages are, and then the workshop portion of this week will be landing page teardowns. Maybe we'll do one where we talk about strategy a little bit, but anybody who submitted this week, hopefully you've got a landing page you can be prepared to like show on the screen, and I can tell you how good or how bad it is and give you some tips. I will be kind in as much as possible. So on to the meat. So I have a 15-year-old son who says that I am not a human being because the way I think about things is a little bit robotic. So I am aware that this phrase is complicated, right? Marketing is about making people love you. There's like an ethical, should you be making people love you? Is that a right thing to do? I'm not here to talk about ethics. I'm not here to talk about humanity. I'm just here to tell you the story the way I see it, right? Marketing, I think, I wrote a whole article about it. There's a link in the notes here. Marketing is about making people love you, right? It doesn't mean tricking people. I'm not advocating tricking people or deceiving people or in any way. But I think, in any kind of like relationship, you are constantly striving to be the thing that be the thing that you should be, right? Be your authentic self. But also, like, if you have crappy traits, you should fix those. And I think marketing, it kind of, Harvard, if you follow like Harvard Business School, they believe that marketing, or they talk about a lot, that marketing is business, right? What you kind of learn from marketing drives your business decisions, and your business decisions to drive your marketing. So this is my statement. Marketing is about making people love you. Feel free to read the article. It sounds weird, but it's an analogy. It's not meant to be perfect. So, take it with a grain of salt. If you did last boot camp, you know that I kind of look at and I talk about marketing as in terms of a relationship, right? So then if that's the case, I want to give you strategy in the context of relationship. And this was the best way I could make that happen. So I think there's really 3 primary strategies when you're looking to create a campaign. There's the branding strategy, there's a complete funnel strategy, and there's a direct sale. So I don't know how familiar everybody is with these platforms, but I'll dive in a little bit more. Instagram is really where you talk about you, right? You're going to put all the cool places you've traveled. You're going to put the food that you like. You're going to put your puppy. You're going to put like your best selfies and your friends. This is where you kind of tell the story about you. And on Instagram, you're not necessarily, your Instagram profile is not asking for anything, right? It's there to talk about you, and people can go there to learn about you. It's a lot of work, right? And maybe if you have, if you go to the gym and you post some shirtless pics, talking about a guy, or your girl, whatever, um, maybe you'll get some DMs, right? Um, that's what a branding campaign is. You're doing a lot of work to tell the story of who you are. Of course, you're putting your best foot forward, but you're not asking for anything. You're just saying, hey, this is who we are. That's a branding campaign. Next, you've got a complete funnel campaign. This is what a lot of people really like to do. And we'll go into this, but it's creating a funnel where at the top of the funnel, you're generating awareness that your brand exists. At the middle of the funnel, you're generating consideration. Hey, is this something I want to buy? And at the bottom of the funnel, you're getting them to close the sale. This is like a Match.com profile, right? Match.com, you want to tell your whole story, but you're specifically asking for the sale, right? Nobody goes on Match.com not to find a date, right? You can be on Instagram and you're not looking for anything. But if you're on Match.com, you're looking for a relationship, right? That's why you're there. It's very clear that you're asking for the sale, right? Now, it's going to take longer for you to close the sale on Match.com, right? You're telling this long story. You're giving this whole picture about who you are and what, and again, this is an analogy. I'm assuming you can all bridge the gap between what I'm saying and business, right? You're telling a story about who you are, but you're also kind of saying what you want from people. And it takes longer to close the sale, right? But you're building for the long term. When you go on Match.com, you start a relationship, you end up married, whatever. I don't know how it works. But that's the complete funnel campaign. You're going to start by kind of generating this awareness at the top. You're going to generate consideration at the middle, and then at the end, you're going to get people to decide whether they want to buy the thing or not, right? Tinder is a direct sale. Tinder, everybody knows why you're there. Everybody puts their most perfect picture, and then you hope that when you meet in person, the real package lives up to the hype. And it's pretty clear what you're looking for the most part. This is recorded, so I will just leave it there. Tinder's a direct sale strategy. Match is a complete funnel. Instagram is like a branding campaign, right? And I'll kind of dive into these. So if you're looking, well, actually, I'll leave you with that, and then we'll kind of talk about those in relation to stages, right? So this is how I look at stages for campaigns. There's a validation campaign, which is, again, if it's an early stage product, you need to define, you need to determine if people actually want what you're selling, because there's a point usually in the early stages of a company where you, of course, assume that you've got this great idea. You assume that everybody wants what you have to sell, but you're not really sure yet. I mean, you hope, and you've got some anecdotal evidence probably because you talked to your mom and your sister and your uncle, and they all said, yeah, that's cool. We think that's nice, but they've also been telling you how great you are your entire life. So this is where you get to figure out, okay, do people really want what I have to sell? It's designed to be a very temporary campaign where you just figure out, can you generate 5 or 10 engagements? Those engagements can be contacts, they can be purchases. If you already have a product on the market, they can be email signups, they can be shares. It's really just 5 to 10 solid engagements that make you feel like, okay, you know what? People do want this product. This is the product people want. We're able to solve a pain point, and we're communicating how we're solving that pain point. And once you validate that people want what you have, these campaigns can stop, right? You've reached confirmation. You don't need to run them anymore. You can do this every time you launch a new product, anytime you want to do a new feature. So one of the things I highly recommend, it's like the agile and lean methodology, is if you want to build a new feature to your product, or you want to launch a new product, don't actually build that feature or launch that product. Do a validation campaign first. Get 5 to 10 people who you don't know, who've never interacted with you before, to say, yeah, I'd pay for that, or yeah, I'm interested, and then build the feature. Don't build features or products until you have validation. So that's When people come to me with a brand new product, never tested, we kick off a validation campaign. Usually your budget's a little bit smaller. Hopefully your budget, hopefully you reach these engagements within budget. What you may learn from here is that people don't want this product, or the benefits that you thought were going to work to sell it don't. And you've got to rework how you're marketing this thing from a design perspective, from a branding perspective, from a messaging perspective, from an audience perspective. We'll get into all those details as we go further in the weeks. But if you don't get confirmation, then you run a new validation campaign. And again, test a different audience, or test a different message, or test a different brand. You know, even sometimes at this stage, branding is up for debate, or pricing is up for debate. The one thing I would encourage you is maybe not to test everything at once. So if you want to test a new campaign with a different audience, test a new campaign with a different audience. Don't change everything, because if you launch a campaign and it didn't work, and then you changed everything about the campaign and it does work, you don't know which element was the thing that worked, right? You don't know if, okay, maybe my new audience is what worked, or maybe my new messaging is what worked, or maybe my new pricing is what worked. So test one thing at a time, and you might be stuck in validation for months, right? If you don't get the results you need in that first campaign or second campaign, that's okay. Validation is very important. Next is benchmarking. So here, if you took the last workshop, or if you didn't, I'm assuming you are running your company based on some financial projections, and those projections are based on assumptions. And some of you already have those assumptions proven, and that's great. Some of you don't. Benchmarking campaign is really to prove the assumptions you made in your financial projections, or to get a sense of what those numbers should be so you can make financial projections. The main question here is generally, how much does it cost to get a customer? So here you want to find out, do people want your product? Here you want to find out, how much is it going to cost you to get that customer to sign up with you, right? What you're looking for as a goal is 10 to 50 investments. 10 to 50 is a big range, but the number is smaller if your price point's bigger, and it's higher if your price point is smaller. So if you're selling like a $500 a month thing, you might get validation. You might reach your benchmark with just like 3 to 5 signups. If you're selling something an app that costs $1 one time, you probably need to generate like 100 investments, 100 people that say, yeah, here's my $1, let me get it, right? It's based on how much your product is and how big of an investment they need to make. But you can also benchmark through email signups. Again, you've got to make a couple of assumptions, but if you don't have a product ready yet, that's okay. You can still run a benchmark campaign. And what I usually say is you're going to convert 1%. You can safely assume you're going to convert 1 out of 100 email signups, right? So the question there becomes, how much does it cost you to get 100 email signups? If it costs you $1 for each email, then your customer acquisition cost is probably going to be about $100. That math is very, very simple. It's not always right. It's almost never right, but it's the best you can do if you don't have a product. And if you think you're going to convert more than 1 out of 100, great. Set those assumptions and still run the benchmark campaign using those numbers. This can continue if the numbers are positive and they match your when I say CAC, that's customer acquisition cost, and they match your customer acquisition cost assumption. So let's say your projections in your financial plan say you're going to get a customer for $45, right? You run this campaign, you find that you're actually getting customers for $38, right? Then you can just keep running this campaign, and this becomes the basis for your growth campaign. If you don't match it, let's say you thought it was going to be $45. You thought it was going to be $45 and the number is $48. That's okay too. You're pretty close. Through a process of optimization, you can probably get it down. If you run a benchmark campaign, you assumed the customer acquisition cost is going to be $45 and it ends up being $200 or $300, which happens. It's actually pretty common for your initial customer acquisition cost to be 5x what you thought it was going to be or what you think it can be. Then I obviously wouldn't continue it. I would stop it. I would make the adjustments just like we talked about in the validation campaign and run it again. And so you've got 2 choices here. Either you update your projections with your new benchmarked customer acquisition cost and see if you can survive and grow, Or you keep running that benchmark campaign until you get it to the point that you can acquire customers at a number that's somewhere within 20%, 30% of your assumption. And once you reach that, then you can move on to the next stage, which is growth. You can't move to this growth phase unless you know that you can get a customer acquisition cost that fits within your plan. And then in growth phase, there's a lot to talk about here. We're going to go into like the very basics because I've got to move on to landing pages in 7 minutes. But as you go into growth plan, your growth phase, this is then what you continue with, throughout the course of the company. So it's going to change, it's going to modify. There's like when you first started in your growth, when you're 2 years into your growth, when you're 5 years into your growth. We're not going to talk too much about that because, well, this is a startup boot camp, not necessarily like a business boot camp. If you had your company 10 years and you're growing and your growth campaign is not working anymore, that's a different conversation than what we're going to be talking about here. In growth, you're looking to grow your sales month over month. Let's talk about scale here because, well, scale is it just needs to match whatever's in your financial projections. We're not talking about scalable startups specifically. We're not talking about tech startups specifically, but you've got to reach like a growth number, a percentage that you're comfortable with. That might be 3% month over month growth. It might be 40% month over month growth. I don't know. That's for you to determine. If you're building a tech startup that you're looking to raise capital for, you probably want that number to be at least 20% month over month. And I'll mention too, remember that in some of these things, when I talk about growth and profit often like are the enemies of each other. Right? If you're pushing for growth, you're not necessarily going to be pulling profit out of that. And if you're pushing for profit, you're going to reduce your growth. So you've got to make a decision here, whether you want to push for growth or profit. You can't get, can I say this? I'm going to say it anyway. You can't really do both. You can't get growth and profit at the same time. Somebody's going to say you can. Yeah, of course you can. But like, just like there's been like professional basketball players that are 5'1", right? And so somebody who's 5'1" is like, yeah, okay, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. Cool, but probably not, right? Statistically, it's just not going to work out. Doesn't mean it can't work out, right? Muggsy Bogues, I think he's 5'1" for those Charlotte basketball fans. He was 5'1", NBA player. He could dunk. Congratulations, good job, Muggsy Bogues. Most people who are 5'1" cannot be NBA players. Most people who are running a company cannot get profit and growth at the same time. You're going to have to pick one. And that's based on, again, your financial projections. So, and when I'm talking about growth, I don't mean like 1% profit, 1% growth. That's irrelevant. But I mean, like if you're trying to get 20, 30, 40% month over month growth, you're not going to pull out 10% profit, 20% profit. It's not typical. In your growth phase, you want to identify your primary channels. You want to maximize your primary channels. Everybody says, okay, I'm doing this on Facebook. Should I try this? Should I try that? Should I try that? My question is, are you getting what you want out of Facebook? If the answer is yes, then just keep putting as much money into Facebook as you can until you stop getting the returns that you want. I see there's some questions coming through. Alyssa, jump in if I should pause to answer. Otherwise, I will keep talking until.
Yes, absolutely.
Identify your primary channels. You want to maximize those primary channels. There's another article I think I've talked about before that I wrote called, I don't know, something about like ideas being the enemy of growth. There's something that has to happen in the growth phase, and sometimes it can be done by the same person. Oftentimes it can't. Is that you need two teams, right? You need one team that's focused purely on growth, focused purely on optimization, focused on the boring day-to-day KPI improvement activities. And then you need another team that's focused on ideation, right? That other team that's focused on ideation gets maybe it gets like 5% of the budget, right? 5% of your marketing budget, maybe a little bit more, maybe 10%. No more than that, no more than 10%. And with that 5 or 10% of the budget, it's their job to identify new channels that are viable, right? And this is where you go with ideas. This is like fun marketing ideas. This is growth hacks. This is whatever. You don't do growth hacking if you are already reaching like growth numbers on your primary campaigns. What you do at that point is optimization. You're optimizing hard at that stage and just pushing towards those numbers. And then you've got this scrappy little team at the bottom who's competing with the 90% budget with only 10% of the money and trying to make something happen, right? Those are, like I said, they're often not the same person. You need someone who's really focused and operational to run your growth and your optimization, and then someone who's, like a free thinker, creative type, ideation, to do your like little growth hack stuff. But don't try to run your growth campaign all with like these growth hacking ideas and blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's not going to work. You got to put your creativity aside, optimize, and then, I'm going to constantly test new channels with 10% of budget, right? Just to clarify, so nobody says, but Pedro, you said this. 5% of budget, okay? At this point, it's also a good idea to maybe consider professional management, like an agency or something like that for your optimization. That way, again, your team is doing ideation in-house and you've got an agency that's doing like the professional optimization. I don't think in the validation and benchmark phases, I don't love the idea of outsourcing at this stage. Like one of the things we do at Navigate, which ends up being something that founders really like, is we do something called marketing guidance, where we create these campaigns with the companies we work with. So it's not like they hire us to do campaigns. We're not a marketing agency, but they hire us to like work with them on a Zoom call to create campaigns. Because you as a founder should be intimately involved in this validation campaign and the benchmarking campaign, because you need to know, do people want this product? And if this doesn't work, an agency is not going to be able to fix this for you. You need to jump in and say, okay, well, I know this product. I know my audience, right? Something is not clicking, and I'm going to have to be the one that solves this problem. An agency is not going to solve validation for you. Benchmarking is similar. An agency can kind of guide you, but you need to be involved in this process. Where am I on time? You need to be involved in the benchmarking process so that you can establish, okay, if you have been in this space a long time and you feel like that a customer acquisition cost of $45 is possible, and your campaigns are getting a customer acquisition cost of $90, again, you have to be involved in, okay, what levers do you have? What can you try? How do we try different things? And you should be pushing every single week at this validation and benchmark phase. I will mention sometimes you can do validation and benchmark at the same time. That's okay. And growth is when things really change to like a more deliberate, process of optimization. Validation and benchmarking it's temporary campaigns to solve a particular question. I didn't talk about how the stages interact with the strategies. But I say in the validation and benchmark phase, you should always be going the Tinder route, right? Like we do not have time to build a relationship and go on 17 dates and buy dinner. Like you don't have time for that in the validation and benchmarking phase. You just need to like get straight to business. Look, this is what I'm here for. This is what I want from you. Do you want it or not? Right? That's what you're doing in validation and benchmark. In growth, you're going to start then with, you're going to keep your direct sales campaign and you're going to go with a complete funnel campaign. And then once you've maximized these two campaigns, and I hope I'm not offending anybody with these analogies, but if I am, I don't know, grow up. Once you've maximized these two campaigns, and only once you've maximized these two campaigns, do you do a branding campaign. So when you have spent all the budget you can possibly spend on Match.com and Tinder, again, I hope people understand the analogy. Once you've spent all the money you can possibly spend on those two channels, right? And you can't, your agency is telling you, look, I cannot increase this budget anymore. There's just no more audience to be found. Then you do a branding campaign. There's some exceptions to the rule, but we're kind of trying to keep this simple. Next, we're going to go into landing pages. Again, I wish that I had more time to talk about landing pages, but we'll do with what we can. Why landing pages? If you don't know what landing pages are, it's a custom page. It's different. Look at this. I don't even know how to write. A custom page that is different from your landing page. It should be focused on a simple call to action while minimizing any distractions for the user. And why you do this is because a decent website, like even a really good, well-optimized website, is probably going to get a conversion rate of 1 to 2%. And a really good landing page can convert anywhere from 4 to 30%. So even like worst case, you're converting twice as high as a good website, right? Landing pages are really valuable. Most paid campaigns should send traffic to a landing page. Not all. We'll talk about that in details later. Everybody asks me, where should I build my landing page, right? There's a ton of landing page builders. If you search Google and just type landing page builder, you'll have a ton of options. Here's a few of the big ones: Unbounce, Lead Pages, Instapage. These are kind of the three, I would say these are the three main ones: Unbounce, Lead Pages, and Instapage. There's also ClickFunnels, which I don't have a logo because I forgot. MailChimp is doing landing pages now. If you already use MailChimp, you could try their landing pages. Most of the Constant Contacts, MailChimps, email platforms are also doing landing pages. And then most of the website builders like Wix and Squarespace will also help you do a landing page. Which one you use, I don't care. This is kind of like my response to all of these. I guess I should put this in the back, right? Let's see, how do we do that? Order, send to back. There we go. That's a better design for this slide. I don't care which one you use. It doesn't really matter to me. Whatever one you're most comfortable with. If you've got more experience in Wix, use Wix. If you got more experience, if you feel like learning something new, play with Instapage. I don't care what you do. They're all the same. This part I think is more valuable when we think about landing pages. By the way, I wrote this haiku for you guys. That's how much I love you. I wrote you guys a poem. So I don't want to hear that Pedro doesn't love us, because I wrote you a poem, and that means something. Think of your story, think of your landing page as a story, right? What elements does your audience need to see in order to take the action you want from them? Again, maybe I'm a robot, maybe my teenage son is right, but what you're focusing on here, and look, anybody who says they don't do this is a liar, right? If you go on a date, let's use a dating analogy again. If you go on a date, you're doing the things that your audience needs to see in order for them to take the action you want. This is, maybe I'm phrasing it oddly, right? But everybody does this. If you go to a job interview, right, what are you doing? You're putting forth the elements that you need to put forth in order to get that job, right? You don't show up to a job, unshowered or messy. Maybe you bring, I don't know what people do in job interviews nowadays, but you get the idea, right? This sounds robotic. It sounds weird sometimes, but this is what everybody does all the time, right? We're always putting forth the elements that our audience needs to see, but then we go to the website and we get so distracted on what colors are we using and what this and what that. And again, that's like getting ready for a date, right? And not taking a shower and not shaving and not brushing your teeth, but focusing only on what color your shirt and your pants are, right? At the end of the day, nobody cares what color your shirt and your pants are, right? Just like nobody cares what color your website uses. But people get so focused on these colors and these pictures, and that's not really the most important thing to be doing there, right? Like I've had people go, oh, well, that's our brand color, we have to use that color. Why? That brand color doesn't do anything, It's like, if you always wear black, you have to wear black. I don't care. My point is, like, don't focus on things that are irrelevant to the story, right? And we'll go over how you tell your story and what elements are necessary, and maybe I'll set up an outline. But I knew that we'd be kind of running short on time, so I just went straight to some wireframes. And if you don't know what a wireframe is, it's like this kind of thing, right? It's putting the site together. I'll actually make this a little bigger because it's hard to see. It's putting like a version of the site together where you're not thinking about, you don't fill out any images. Like this gray thing in the background is supposed to be an image, but you're not spending time thinking about what that image is. Why? Because it's not really that important, right? Of course it's important on some level, but at the end of the day, what's more important is the message and the story you're telling and what components you're going to use to tell that story. So I'm going to break down, we'll start with this one, right? So I want to just kind of go through how we analyze this. First of all, it's got the logo. Okay, fine, you need that there. Best headline in the world. I mean, we would spend some time developing this headline, and we'll do this in another session where we look at the persona, we look at the pain points that persona has, we look at how our product or service is addressing those pain points, and then we craft a message around that exercise, right? So, but the point is that you need a headline, you need a title, you need something that grabs their attention right away. Secondly, on a landing page, I always want to see an immediate call to action. Most people are not going to utilize this call to action, and that's okay. What's important is that they see that you're here for a particular thing, or that they're here for a particular thing, right? If you land on this page, you immediately know, whether it's consciously and you think about it or subconsciously in your mind, you know that this is here, right? Because this is what they want me to do. And then that is going to be in your mind as you, again, subconsciously, consciously, somewhere there in the recesses of your dark, twisted little brains, it's there. And you know, as you're reading all this stuff, you've already been primed to know that this is what I'm here for. I'm here for this. Again, we'll kind of go back to this. If it's a branding campaign, you go to Instagram, somebody's Instagram profile for what? Just to kind of see what they're doing. Maybe it's cool, maybe it looks good, whatever. There's not like a direction that you're there to take. If you're on Match.com, you know the person's looking for a relationship. If you're on Tinder, you know they're looking for maybe a different kind of relationship. Who knows? The point is that you get here and you kind of know what the intention of these things are, right? So when you get here, unless your site tells them what the intention of this site is, they don't know. And it's important that they know, because that informs how they browse the rest of the page. So throw a call to action right here in the beginning. It should be direct. If you have a product to pre-order, put a pre-order. If you have a subscribe, VIP list, whatever, put it right up front. Nobody's going to click on it. That doesn't mean it's not valuable and important. Next, and I hope everybody can see this. I know it's a little bit dark. I mean, a little bit light. Can everybody kind of see the words on here? I don't know if there's anything I can do if you don't. But anyway, no, I haven't gotten a single amen in this whole thing. I feel unappreciated. Not even with the poem. I made a poem too. Gosh. Let's see. Lorraine, thank you. Thank you, Diana. Okay. So next, you see this customer logo here. This is where you put trust icons. It can be a customer logo if you have customer logos, if you've worked with big companies or you've been, so this can either be customer logos. It can be, a lot of people use like as seen in, you know, like as seen on Forbes, as seen on Entrepreneur Magazine, whatever. That could be this section as well. If you don't have any of those, this can be trust seals. A trust seal, just for those of you who have a question, are these things. Let's just pull it up. Any of these things, right? All this junk that you always see, you know, and on a bunch of sites, right? All these random things. Now, people ask me all the time, okay, what are the important trust seals to get, right? What's important when I'm looking for, you know, I need to sign up for these things, right? If you look at like Trustee, I think they charge like $1,500, and Microsoft Certified. These are not cheap. McAfee, this is a product you pay for. Norton. And so people are like, okay, if I'm going to have to pay for these, which ones do I need to pay for, right? And what I tell them is, these are also trust seals. Best choice, high quality, certified product, the money back 30-day money back guarantee. And the data shows that it actually doesn't matter whether you have these trust seals or whether you have these trust seals that you pay for. They affect your conversion rate in the same way, which is that they all bump it up somewhere between 2 and 10%, right? Doesn't matter who they're from, doesn't matter if it's a Google trust seal or a Shopify trust seal or something that you just bought from Google stock and it says 100% security SSL protected. This is garbage. This means nothing in reality. But statistically, you put it on your page somewhere right there in the beginning, and it's going to increase your conversion rate. Just do it and don't ask questions. Why use our platform? Actually, this wireframe I think is a little bit wrong because they say feature number 1, feature number 2, feature number 3. I would make this why use our platform benefit number 1, benefit number 2. So if you don't know the difference in features and benefits, I probably don't have time to explain it, but just look up features versus benefits selling, right? And this should be benefit number one, benefit number two. So what you're immediately doing is you're establishing what the primary pain point that you're solving is, right? With this headline. This headline is addressing a pain point that your persona has. You're addressing why they're here at this page. They're here because you want them to do this action. You're saying you can trust us because here's some cool logos that we bought on Adobe stock, right? And then this makes them feel good, right? They get here, they understand why they're there, they understand the pain point you're addressing, and they trust you, right? Now you go into the specifics of what are the benefits they're going to get. This is a good part of the story, right? What are the benefits they're getting? This about us is a chance for you to add some human elements, right? So this here is all about like company and pain points and product, right? If this hero image, if you're selling a physical product, should be a picture of your product. And then here you add some human elements. So who are the founders, right? Show pictures. People really like when they can see pictures of people. Because then they can kind of identify, right? And this is a great place for validation as well, because if you're a founder and you've been in this industry for 17 years, this is where you talk about it. How it works, this isn't appropriate for every landing page, but it doesn't hurt to throw it in there if it's a little bit of a complex product. This is really a section for overcoming an objection. I don't know how many of you are familiar with like traditional like sales training or sales techniques, but overcoming objections, like a landing page is really like a digital salesperson, right? And overcoming objections is a big part of sales. So here, if your product is a little bit complicated and you think people are, you've got to anticipate, right? So they get here, they know what problem you're solving, they know what you want them to do, they see the benefits, and they see about you. What is the objection now? Why haven't they submitted their information? Because if you can't think of a single objection at this point, just end the page here with another call to action. But if you're thinking about it, you're like, well, they might get here and they might identify with the pain, and they might trust us because of the logos, and they might feel identified because they see our pictures, but they're probably wondering how it works because it is a little bit complicated, right? Then you address that objection here. So this how it works could be anything. It's really where you address a specific objection. Here, testimonials, everybody should have testimonials. Everybody should get 5 stars. Somebody asked me the question the other day, well, I don't, do I need to pay for a platform where people could submit their testimonials and give us a rating? No, man, just write a testimonial and give yourself 5 stars. Like, do you think that, oh gosh, this is not ideal to say. But okay, so how about I say this way? Just people have told you what they think of your product, right? If they haven't actually submitted the testimonial, just write down what people say about your product and put it here and assume that they give you 5 stars. That's fair. Don't be unethical about it. Don't lie. I don't like lying, but you've talked to enough people at this stage of the game that people have said, oh, I really like that. And it's, I would get it because XYZ, right? So take that thing that the person said, turn it into a testimonial, take out the name if you feel better about it. And of course they would give you 5 stars. So you don't have to get a platform. There's no thing you've got to set up. Like, just like this, like for these trust symbols, you don't need to pay for some service to give you a trust symbol. You need to pay for a service to collect testimonials. Just put them there. You know what people say about your product, put it there. And then you have to have a call to action at the bottom again. Don't skip this. Don't let people get to the bottom of your page without asking them what to do, right? I'm not going to give a dating analogy here because, whatever. It's the end of the page. You're asking them to do something. Just do it. This is one example. I have time to either go over a couple more examples or address some questions.
We have 4 questions.
Okay, let's hit the questions.
Can you give some specific equivalents of funnel and direct for consumer products? Match and Tinder don't apply. Haha.
For consumer products? Okay, tell me the product. Can they just put the name of like the type of product it is?
Drop that in the chat and we'll get back to that question.
And then give me the next one.
Sorry, I muted myself. Could we just use a page inside your WordPress installation?
Yes, you can do landing pages on WordPress, 100%.
Awesome. Next one is, Shouldn't an existing page on your website / homepage include all of this information anyway? Not dismissing the value of landing pages, just trying to understand the difference between homepage
Yeah,
/ product
great
pages.
question. Great question. So if you notice on this page, there's no navigation. The About Us is literally like 2 sentences. There's no Contact Us. There's no blog. There's nowhere else for the user to go. The user can only do this one action, which is whatever the call to action is, right? And that's really key for for like optimizing conversion rate. Is the more links and the more things you give people to read, like you wouldn't put here like About Us and then at the end put a link to read more and then take them to an About Us page. On your website, you do need to provide that information. You need to have a full About Us. You need to have a Contact Us page. You need to have a page that maybe talks a little bit more about how it works or whatever. On a landing page, you don't have that. So I recommend like the strategy of like, it's called like a walled garden, where the user does not have any option other than the call to action you want them to take on your landing page. So that's why you wouldn't necessarily use your homepage. Now, there are exceptions. If you've got a sales process or you're selling something that's really like commoditized and you need to give more information, you know, you've got to look at what your competitors are doing in the space. So I always recommend, you know, whatever you're selling, I would go to Google and search for it and see what your competitors are doing as a landing page, because that may kind of inform. But you're all, and I said here, I did say, you know, I said, I don't know where I said most, right? Somewhere around here, I put the word most. So not everybody is going to use a landing page, but there is a reason to go with a landing page that's not your homepage, because you don't want all those other links. You don't want About Us. You don't want Contact. You don't want all that junk. You want to keep them very focused. Funnel and direct for sure. Okay. So, I mean, again, it depends what you're selling, right? So if you're selling, that's why I was asking what product they're selling, because they're asking for a specific recommendation. So if you're, so an example of a direct sale, right? Let's say you're selling, let's say you're selling this thing, right? Purell, right? Which is easy to sell
Yeah, hot
nowadays.
commodity.
If you're all right, if you're selling this and you're doing a direct sale, you're going to want to, you know, you're going to want to figure out what, you know, first of all, I don't know what the unique value proposition is or whatever, but you're going to focus on the unique value. So maybe in this, the fact that it kills 99.99% of germs versus 99%, you know, you say kills, you know, kills more germs than any other product, buy now. You know, if you are worried that that last 1% of germs might be affecting you, buy this product right now. Ships in 24 hours, right? That's a direct sale, right? A complete funnel would maybe start by saying, you know, what are the benefits of using, you know, Purell Advanced, right? It just starts with what are the benefits, which is not asking for the direct sale, but kind of like getting you to be aware of this product, right? And then in the middle, it's going to do a comparison. Okay, here's Purell versus the next 3 competitors, and here's how we rank, right? So they saw your awareness campaign in the original one, and they saw it, and they saw, okay, cool, I know about Purell now. And then in the consideration campaign, which is the middle of the funnel, they're going to say, okay, this is Purell versus the other 3 competitors. Which one is better? Right? And they look at that and they see this matrix and they're like, okay, cool, Purell is good. You still haven't asked for the sale. You're just pointing out why how your product compares to the competition. And then in the final part of the funnel, you end up going for the direct sale. But the messaging can be a little more nuanced, because now they're aware of your product and they're aware of how it compares. So instead of saying, you know, focusing on the 99%, you can talk about, you know, how it compares to the other competitors, and you can do a price comparison, and you can be a little bit more elaborate on how you ask for that sale. Thank you guys. Thank you for coming. If you weren't here, this would be a huge waste of time. And yeah. Oh, you've always got my info at the end here, by the way.